Hi, my name is Richard Miller, and this is one of several clinics that count down to submission of an application for SHDF funding. I'm going to start with some general comments about getting ready to submit, and then focus on a specific issue, getting your risk management strategy right and developing your risk register. Hopefully, you have got off to a fast start in developing your proposal. There's never enough time to complete all the possible tasks, so you need to get moving. Don't wait until you have all the information before starting to develop the application. If you're in a consortium, encourage all your partners to give you as much as they can as soon as they can. Getting a clear overall picture and then filling in the gaps and weaknesses is better than waiting until everything is perfect and then struggling for time. Use the support and expertise of Turner & Townsend to check an early draft. They can tell you how well your project aligns with the competition and where improvement is needed. Make sure you understand who has to sign off on the project internally and what information they need to approve it. You don't want to get to the end and suddenly find key decision makers are not available or have not been briefed. If possible, make sure that you bring them with you as the project concept develops. They are much more likely to approve the project if they've contributed to its development and seen it grow. There are masterclasses and toolkits on the SHRA website on gaining senior leadership buy-in that are helpful. And of course, if you are in a consortium, you must make sure that the same preparatory work has been done in each partner. Unfortunately, you've probably been inundated with all the complex information that seems to be required for the application. How do you whittle it down to fit onto the application form? The first suggestion is that you make sure that one person holds the pen. Whilst it is possible to create a strong application with a clear story by committee, it is not easy. A clear narrative can emerge more easily if one person is converting the thoughts of a group into text. Make sure that you answer the exam question. Don't put down the answer you think is important. Give BEIS the information they are looking for. It sounds obvious, but it is not uncommon to see someone using the available space to provide background and context that squeezes out the actual answer. So respect the instructions and the guidance and the word limits for each answer. Here's an example from the application form. The application form, the guidance and the FAQs will tell you exactly what sort of answer is wanted. Focus on delivering that in the space available. Never forget that your assessor is a normal human, just like you. They need to see that you have convincing arguments for the questions and that you can deliver a project that will make a difference. That is more than just facts. You're telling a story about your project. A story that engages and excites, that can hold an audience. One that can convince the assessor that your project will make a real difference and that you can successfully deliver it. Using the guidance in the application form, the competition guidance and the FAQs, you can break down the information required using the N.O.S.E, the N.O.S.E model. Needs. Show that you have understood and responded to BEIS needs. What are they trying to achieve, and how will your project deliver their objectives? Outcomes. Paint a picture of the results you will deliver that address their strategic needs. Solutions. What do you plan to do and how will you do it? Why is your project the best way to meet their needs? And evidence. Provide specific evidence that you can deliver for BEIS. This approach is covered in more detail in the on-demand masterclass from the website, Developing Application Responses Using a Storyboarding Approach. So pulling this preliminary section together, start early. It takes longer than you think. Check the approvals process. Make sure you are aligned with that. One person to hold the pen. It makes for a much more coherent and flowing story. Make sure you answer the exam question and make sure you tell a story. Moving on to the question of risk management, we're going to cover both risk management strategy and the risk register. Look at why risk management is an important part of project management, the different types of risks that need to be considered, developing a risk management plan that covers how you will do risk management, creating a risk register that provides a regularly updated snapshot of the risks you have identified and how you will deal with them, and then we'll talk about some example risks in large-scale retrofit projects that you should consider. What does BEIS expect from you? They're looking for regular reporting, a proactive, structured and targeted approach to managing the risk of fraud specifically, dealing with delivery assurance, making sure the project will actually deliver, and that's a substantial part of the assessment marks. And risk and issues register is a required application annex. So without a risk management plan and a risk register, your application will not succeed. It is important to separate the risk management plan and the risk register. Although they're often considered to be interchangeable, they are not. The risk management plan is about how you will identify risks, assess their impact, and plan and manage efforts to reduce those risks. The risk management plan is all about how. It can be generic and apply to all of your projects. The risk register is a snapshot of the specific risks on a specific project, how important they are, and what you plan to do about them. The risk management plan covers these issues. How will you assess risk? Who will do it? When will you review and update? How will you decide mitigation actions? And who will deliver those actions? It does not need to be complicated. It can be a page or so, but it must be written down and agreed and understood by all the participants in the project. And that includes internal participants as well as any consortium partners. The risk register is a picture of where the project risks lie now. It will change as the project evolves. Some risk issues will be dealt with, some will fade away, some will increase in importance, and new problems will be discovered. Think about risks in two dimensions. What is the probability of the event happening, high or low? And what is the impact on the project if it does happen, high or low? The top right quadrant covers risk events that are likely to happen, and if they do, they will be very bad for the project. These are your high priority risks. Top left and bottom right quadrants are high probability and low impact, or low probability and high impact. These are of lower priority but still important. The bottom left quadrant are low probability and low impact. You might not be able to ignore them completely, but they are less of a worry. The goal is to push down the probability of a risk event happening and its impact. You want to try and move risks from the top right quadrant towards the bottom left. These are some of the categories of risk you will need to think about. Will the solutions we come up with actually work? Can we deliver the benefits expected at the price predicted? Can we secure the money required for the project? Are there any legal risks or events that could damage our reputation? Could disgruntled stakeholders disrupt the project, perhaps preventing access to the property during the monitoring phase? Are there regulatory barriers we haven't thought about? Could something go wrong in the project delivery? And once a project is completed, will it deliver the expected and planned performance? The first step in building a risk register is to brainstorm what could go wrong. Involve as many different project partners and teams as possible to get different perspectives, and try and think of everything. Go as wide as you can. Once you have your big collection of risks, start to sort them by probability and impact. combining your assessments to provide an overall score. So you can use the kind of red, amber, green we've talked about earlier. Some people use numerical scores and multiply them together. It doesn't really matter what method you use to assign the priority to the risk, as long as you're consistent through the project. When thinking through the potential impacts, it's important to look beyond the direct impacts on the specific task. What about consequential impacts? How could it affect other parts of the project? It's a bit like a racing car crashing. A failure of one component changes the handling and steering, causes the car to swerve, to hit a barrier, damaging more parts, and so on. All of a sudden, you just have a collection of broken parts scattered across the racetrack. A cascade failure. These can be hard to spot and need someone with an overview of the whole project. Focused teams and silos make the problem worse, so you need to be looking out for these issues. To pick a retrofit example, here is some external wall insulation that has failed. The render was not properly applied and you've got cracking. That has allowed water in, which has further damaged the insulation and caused the render panel to detach completely. That means further water ingress, which can lead to poor indoor air quality, mold, damp, and potentially rotting of structural timbers. So there's a cascade failure. Once you've assessed the probability and impact, you know whether this particular risk is a high priority or not. And starting with a high priority risk, you decide your mitigation action plan for each one. How can you reduce the risk? Can you reduce the probability or the impact? And the last column in this table is important, but often gets forgotten. Who is accountable for that mitigation plan? If you don't know who is accountable, how will you know whether it has been done? Internally, it's worth combining this column of the risk register with the RACI charts discussed in the consortium forming and teams and skills masterclasses. The risk register must not be static. Your project is constantly changing. Both the probability and impact of events change as new information becomes available. So the risk register is a living document and must be constantly updated. It is a very valuable tool in project management and also in ensuring alignment of the different partners. So here is an initial starter for 10 of risks relevant to large-scale retrofit projects. It's not exhaustive, and you have to think hard about the specifics of your own project and your own situation. But getting approvals, internal, planning, utilities, highways. Problems with project management, budget, timing, procurement. Governance issues, decision-making, management of funds, dealing with risk of fraud, supply chain. Can you get the materials, the manpower? Do you have the skills? People issues, the residents, neighbours, leaseholders. If you have right to buy properties, pepper potted through the group of properties you want to work on. Issues with the design, the costs, the performance, ventilation, damp, and so on. Issues that can happen with installation. It can be installed incorrectly, you can have QC problems, you may need rework. At the end of the installation, handover, communications, snagging, dealing with resident awareness, making sure that a low carbon home is likely to be subtly different in the way you operate it, the way you get comfort. And then monitoring, dealing with access, assessing the performance gap if there is one and what you're going to do about it, user satisfaction. So summarizing this session on risks, unmanaged risk can derail your project. Assessors will want to see your risk management plan and register. Brainstorm ways your project could go wrong, sort by probability and impact, and then think about how you can reduce those key risks and make sure someone is accountable for delivering it. And always remember, the risk register is a living document. If you have any further questions, you can get in touch via email, particularly to info@socialhousingretrofit.org.uk, or there is a great deal of information on the website. Thank you very much.